I want to share another video I saw, some footage of him taken some years ago on some Catholic special that was done, some video series that was done on the teaching of St. Augustine. And so our new Holy Father is an Augustinian in the tradition of St. Augustine. This is a video about St. Augustine in which he was being interviewed. Do we have a timestamp on this? Was this like maybe 10, 15 years ago? I think if I recall correctly, he was just father at the time. He was not even bishop or certainly not yet cardinal. So let's take a look.
Sono un figlio di Sant'Agostino, agostiniano, che ha detto: con voi sono cristiano e per voi vescovo. In questo senso possiamo tutti camminare insieme verso quella patria la quale Dio ci ha preparato.
One of the reasons that the Confessions continues to be one of the widest read books
this is the
in
voice
the history
of
the
our Holy
world is
Father.
precisely because of Augustine's insight into human experience. And he does a magnificent job of communicating both his own experience and what he lived, and how that experience can indeed be a window, if you will, an opening to discovering a personal experience of God in human life. Augustine in the Confessions talks about friendship, talks about family, talks about the importance of his mother, talks about his father, talks about human ambition, talks about so many different aspects of human life, and then goes on to explain how these things helped or did not help his own personal pathway to discovering God and to discovering what is really holy about life.
Something that strikes me hearing this guy talk, he just seems like a normal guy. I've already shared that, but it's really striking me. And I was so involved in the pontificate of John Paul II. His teaching has shaped my whole life, and this is, of course, what I still do: travel the world, teaching John Paul II's Theology of the Body. And I always kind of envied the Polish nation who, when they heard their beloved John Paul II speak in Polish, they were just hearing, the voice of their homeland, and with no need for translation, obviously, with no thick accent. It was, when the John Paul II or Benedict XVI or Francis spoke in English, you're always, adjusting to the thick accent. This is our Pope. And for us as Americans, he just speaks like an American, which is kind of, it's disarming. It's a little strange to think a normal guy is now our Holy Father. Let's see what other insights he might have here.
In the highly individualistic society that people are growing up in, people think that my experience is the criteria. Am I happy or I'm not happy? What that might really be is, do I feel pleasure or don't I feel pleasure? Or do I feel selfish? And if I feel okay, then that's all that matters. Certainly Augustine's experience says that, well, that isn't enough, and maybe what you're calling happiness isn't authentic happiness, because you're going to lose that too. And most things that people seem to describe as, well, why are you happy today, are things that are either very superficial or at best, important for a short period of time, but that aren't going to last forever. And Augustine gives some insight into helping people understand that having an experience of God brings you far beyond yourself, and that how an authentic experience of happiness has to include other people and has to include being concerned about other people. And those are elements that express, I think, a very important part of the gospel message. It's not just about me and my experience of God either. You might have people say, oh, I have an experience of God and I don't have to do anything else. Well, then that's probably not an authentic experience of God, Because as we know from the Gospels, as we know from the apostolic letters, if you love God, then you also need to be showing that by loving your neighbor. And that
Amen.
the two go hand in hand.
Amen. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that we're getting this insight from, so 2012, 13 years ago, before he was even a bishop, talking about his beloved Saint Augustine, and particularly Saint Augustine's perspective on happiness. I love Saint Augustine's definition of happiness. He says, happiness, listen to this, happiness is having everything I want. Hold on, there's more. Having everything I want and wanting nothing wrongly. Wow, let that sink in for a bit. Happiness is having everything I want. That's just where the world stops, right there, right? And our Holy Father in this video from 2012 was talking about how we pursue these pleasures or some superficial satisfaction as if this is what we really want. But when we pursue those superficial things, we're always left wanting. Why? Because we want something much more than mere superficial pleasure or happiness or money or whatever the world considers happiness. The world says happiness is having everything I want, but it doesn't go to the second part of Augustine's definition, and wanting nothing wrongly. So what is Augustine saying? He's saying the gospel affords the redemption of our desires. This is a big theme for me and everything we do here at the Theology of the Body Institute, that the gospel is not about the repression of our disordered desires. It's not about annihilating our desires. It's about opening our desires and letting those desires be purified and redirected towards what we really want. Again, Augustine says, happiness is having everything I want and wanting nothing wrongly. If Pope Leo XIV is going to be bringing into his pontificate these beautiful gems from Augustine on what true happiness is, and using that as the manner in which he proclaims and preaches the gospel to the world, it's going to be pretty dang awesome.